Jessica Morgan's flashlight trembled in her hand as she stepped into the abandoned hallway of Hollow Creek Elementary, her breath catching when she saw the fresh, glistening blood smeared across the locker's 17 small handprints arranged in a perfect line, each handprint dripping slowly, rhythmically, as if the blood itself still lived. And beneath them the words a child had scrawled in frantic strokes. "We are not the first." That message had not been there a minute ago, and the icy breath that moved across the back of her neck told her she was not alone anymore, not in this place where the shadows pressed too close and the air felt heavy with the weight of things unseen. Everything had spiraled into horror on the night of October 12th, when 17 children vanished without a trace during their schools overnight. Starwatch campout at the Maybrook Nature Reserve in Ohio, a disappearance so clean, so silent, that investigators found it almost surgical, tense, untouched, backpacks neatly zipped. No signs of a struggle, no broken twigs or disturbed leaves. It was like the children had simply stopped existing. Only one child had been found, 9-year-old Alex Carter, discovered sitting barefoot in the middle of Highway 22 at 4:17 a.m., blood caked under his fingernails, staring blankly with wide, unblinking pupils as he whispered, "She took them because they didn't listen. She hates when we don't listen," repeating the same chilling name, Grandma Gladys. A name that appeared nowhere in school files, family trees, emergency contacts, or the town's 50-year digital records. When police tried questioning him further, Alex had gone catatonic, jaw trembling as tears streamed down his cheeks, whispering only, "She's listening," before closing his lips so tight they bled. That was when Maybrook police called in Jessica Morgan, a trauma specialist known for her work on high-profile child disappearance cases in Detroit and Boston. Jessica, though hardened by years of dealing with the darkest corners of the human psyche, felt something she hadn't in a long time: fear when Alex refused to speak to anyone except her. Their first session had lasted barely 8 minutes before Alex pressed his trembling face against the padded wall, his voice cracking as he whispered, "If she knows I'm talking, she'll come for you too." And the look in his eyes, then hollow, ancient, bruised by something he should never have seen, made Jessica's stomach twist. At the emergency parents meeting that evening, Jessica noticed something that snapped her breath. Every missing child had drawn the same woman in the week before they vanished: a tall, thin woman with long crooked fingers, a hunched back, silver white hair pulled tight into a bun, and black hollow eyes, the kind drawn by children who'd seen something they didn't have words for. Emily Hartman's mother clutched her daughter's drawing so tightly her knuckles had turned bone white. Emily had written at the bottom of the page, "Grandma comes to read to us tonight." The parents insisted no such woman existed in their lives. Jessica took a photo, unsettled by how all 17 drawings looked like they were copying the same source, as if they had all met her. That night, in her quiet hotel room, Jessica reviewed the files, realizing every child had complained of nightmares during the week leading up to the trip, nightmares involving knocking on windows, a whispering woman outside their rooms, and a lullaby none of the parents recognized. At exactly 2:14 a.m., Jessica heard tapping on her own hotel window. Tap, tap, twee, soft, deliberate knocks. She froze. Slowly she turned toward the glass. The parking lot outside was empty, silent, still. She exhaled until the reflection in the glass shifted, revealing a tall woman standing behind her, inches from her shoulder, hair white as frost, face pale and stretched, fingers impossibly long. Jessica spun around but saw only darkness, only the empty room and her own pounding heartbeat. When she looked back at the window, 17 small bloody handprints smeared across the glass, each one warm, fresh, dripping, but when she blinked, they vanished completely as if they were never there at all. The next morning brought something far worse. The school janitor had called in a panic, reporting a situation. When Jessica and Detective Ryan Hale arrived at Hollow Creek Elementary, the third-grade hallway looked like a war zone. Every locker had been clawed open from the inside, metal bent outward like foil, deep gouges carved into the doors as though tiny hands had tried to escape. Inside one locker, faint trembling could be heard. Jessica approached slowly, her heart beating too loud in her ears. She pulled the locker open and found a small cassette recorder resting on the shelf. Ryan pressed play. At first, only the sound of children breathing in the darkness. Then soft whispering, "Don't let her in. Don't let her in," followed by the slow creak of a door, a woman's voice humming a haunting tune. Then the sudden eruption of screaming, 17 children screaming in unison before the tape dissolved into static. Jessica felt her blood run cold. The recording wasn't old. The children sounded alive, terrified, close. Ryan traced ambient noise on the audio, isolating a low-frequency echo unique to areas inside the Maybrook forest, specifically near a cluster of old mining cabins. Dating back to the early 1900s, Jessica and Ryan hiked deep into the woods, the air thick and wrong, as if the forest itself held its breath. After 2 hours they found it, a collapsed, rotting cabin with a crooked porch and shattered windows, a place so old it felt like it had been abandoned for a century. Carved into the door in jagged letters was, "Grandma Gladys Storytime." Jessica swallowed hard as Ryan kicked the door open. Inside, An impossible scene met them, a perfect circle of tiny wooden chairs arranged neatly around a rocking chair draped in a decayed quilt. On the rocking chair rested a massive, ancient book with yellowed pages. The walls were covered with drawings, hundreds of them, every one depicting the same woman with black eyes and clawed fingers. And every child in those drawings had their eyes violently scratched out, except one, Alex. His drawn figure stood smiling beside the tall woman holding her hand. Jessica's stomach churned. Why only him? She whispered. Why did he come back? Before Ryan could respond, the cabin door slammed shut behind them with supernatural force. The rocking chair began to creak, moving back and forth though no wind touched it. A thick chill swept across the floor. Drawings peeled themselves off the walls and rose into the air, swirling in a cyclone around Jessica and Ryan. The soft chorus of children's voices filled the cabin. Help us, she's here. Jessica grabbed Ryan's arm, eyes wide with terror. A deep, distorted voice echoed through the collapsing structure. 17 taken, 1 returned, and now 2 more to tell my story. The drawings suddenly burst into flames mid-air, raining ash as the cabin shook violently like something massive was awakening beneath the floorboards. The door blew open with a thunderous blast. They ran outside only to turn back and see the cabin vanish into thin air. The space where it had stood now nothing but untouched forest floor. Jessica felt the air shift around her, felt eyes watching her from the tree line, felt something ancient smiling in the dark. She knew then that whatever Grandma Gladys was, she had marked Jessica, chosen her, and once chosen her, and chosen was no escape, no undoing. Because the woman who collected children did not stop until her story was complete. The moment Ethan staggered out of the abandoned weapons testing compound with Emily's trembling hand locked in his hair. The cold desert air felt thick, wrong, almost metallic, as if the night itself were breathing against their skin, watching them, waiting. They didn't speak. Not because they didn't want to, but because every instinct inside them whispered that something from the compound was listening, something that hadn't finished with them yet. The headlights of Ethan's truck flickered, wildly as though refusing to acknowledge the shapes moving just beyond their reach. The shadows curling along the sand like living tendrils. Get in, hurry, Ethan rasped. But Emily was frozen, staring at the cracked chain-link gate behind them where, for just a fraction of a second, she saw the outline of a soldier-shaped figure dragging its boot across the dirt even though its feet never touched the ground. When the engine finally roared to life, the ground beneath the truck trembled with a low vibration, like an enormous generator still running under the desert, and Emily whispered, Ethan, it's following. He didn't ask, what it didn't matter. He slammed the truck into gear and tore off into the emptiness of the Nevada highway. Their escape lit only by the faint moonlight carving silver streaks across the windshield. But the faster they drove, the more the road warped, the more the horizon seemed to bend inward, as if the world was subtly shifting to push them back toward the compound. The radio crackled, even though the truck's radio hadn't worked in years, and a voice neither of them recognized, a rigid, unnatural voice like something imitating a human whispered coordinates on a loop. The exact coordinates of the facility they had fled. Ethan tried turning it off, but the knob snapped off in his fingers, the static growing sharper, angrier. Emily pressed her hands over her ears and screamed that something was inside the radio, not sound, but presence. When they reached the outskirts of a small desert town called Red Hollow, every street lamp flickered simultaneously, then died, leaving the town in an impossible blackout. No dogs barked, no people walked the sidewalks, no cars moved. It felt staged, like a set abandoned mid-sea. Ethan parked in front of the first building. He found the Rusted Cup Diner, hoping someone inside could help. But when they stepped through the glass door, the bell above it didn't ring. Instead, it swayed back and forth on its own, moving as if touched by invisible fingertips. The diner looked frozen in time. Coffee still steaming in cups, though no one sat at the tables. Plates of food half-eaten but untouched by flies. A jukebox in the corner flickering, though no power ran through town. Emily whispered that they shouldn't be here, that Red Hollow wasn't empty, it was paused, and something had paused it. Something connected to the compound. That's when the lights in the diner flickered, not on, but in reverse, growing darker, dimmer, as if shadows themselves were being layered on top of each other. In those layers, between the darkness, images flashed, soldiers with missing faces, limbs bending in impossible directions, mouths opening wider and wider until they split their own chests. The air rippled like heat waves on asphalt. Ethan grabbed Emily's arm and pulled her toward the back exit. But the kitchen door creaked open before they reached it, revealing the tall figure of a man in a tattered military uniform, his head tilted at an unnatural 45 degrees, his jaw hanging loose, like a broken hinge. His boots dragged across the tile even though his legs didn't move, and his hands twitched as if controlled by invisible strings. Ethan recognized the emblem on the uniform. Sector 9, the most classified section of the compound. Ethan whispered, "Don't move." But Emily whimpered because the soldier wasn't looking at them. There were no eyes to look with. Instead, it tilted its ruined head back, sniffing the air as if scenting fear, and then its body snapped forward with a sudden, violent movement that made every bone in Ethan's spine lock up. The lights shattered above them, raining glass that never hit the floor. Instead, the shards froze midair, suspended like a glittering cage around them. Emily grabbed Ethan's hand and tore him backward through the emergency exit, her breath sharp and wild, the suspended glass clattering to the ground only after they escaped the diner. Like something had released its grip on reality the moment they left. Outside, the town looked worse. Doors hung open, though no wind blew. Curtains twitched without hands touching them. Every streetlight bent slightly toward Ethan and Emily as if the metal itself was leaning to stare. The soldier emerged from the diner, but now more were coming, dozens of them limping, floating, glitching forward with spasms like corrupted video frames. Emily shouted for Ethan to run, and they sprinted toward the highway. But as they crossed the empty intersection, every single traffic light turned blood red, glowing without power, pulsing as though alive. The soldier figures stopped moving and turned their heads not toward Ethan or Emily, but toward the sky, their jaws unhinging in unison. A low metallic hum vibrated through the desert, a sound too deep to be natural, too sharp to be mechanical. Emily fell to her knees, gripping her skull, crying that the sound wasn't just in her ears, what is inside her thoughts. Ethan pulled her up, screaming that they had to keep going, and somehow they made it to a boarded-up gas station at the edge of town. Inside, the air smelled like dust and metal, and the flickering fluorescent tubes overhead lit the aisles in a sickly strobe. Ethan barricaded the door with a fallen shelf while Emily stumbled to the back, where a map hung crookedly on the wall. She stared at it, tanned, then she froze. The map didn't show towns, highways, or landmarks. It showed the compound, drawn in precise detail, underground tunnels, sealed vaults, containment chambers labeled with red warnings, and in the corner was a handwritten note. If they escaped, they are coming for you. It's not soldiers, it's what's wearing them. Emily's hands shook violently as she whispered, Ethan, what did they bury in there? But before Ethan could answer, the lights in the gas station cut out completely. Not faded cut, total. Choking darkness swallowed them. Then came the scraping, slow, rhythmic, metallic, coming from inside the store. Ethan grabbed his lighter and flicked it, illuminating only a tiny circle of orange glow. In that glow, they saw a figure, crouched on the ceiling, its limbs bent backward, its fingers too long, too sharp, digging into the plaster as it slowly lowered its face toward them. It wasn't a soldier, it wasn't human. It was wearing a soldier the way a puppet wears clothes. And as its mouth split open with a wet, tearing sound, Emily screamed Ethan's name, and the thing launched at them with impossible speed, the lighter blowing out, plunging every screaming, shifting, living, darkening. Ethan didn't remember hitting the floor, only the way the darkness swallowed sound as if the world itself had been muted. But when his vision snapped into focus, he found himself half buried under collapsed shelves in the gas station, the air thick with dust and the smell of iron, like old blood. Emily wasn't beside him. That realization hit him harder than the fall, and panic surged through him as he clawed his way out. The faintest vibration in the air telling him the creature, the puppeteer thing wearing the soldier's skin, was still inside with him. He whispered Emily's name, but his voice came out broken, swallowed instantly by the suffocating quiet. He crept forward with only the faint moonlight leaking through a cracked window, and for a moment he saw his reflection in a glass fridge directs. It wasn't his reflection. The shape staring back at him was taller, thinner, its mouth stretched into an obscene grin that cut through the jawline. The reflection tilted its head, but Ethan didn't. A cold ripple crawled down his spine as the image stepped back into the darkness of the glass, as if retreating into another dimension. He stumbled away and followed a trail of disturbed dust toward the back of the store. Every few seconds, the building groaned like something heavy was moving in the walls. When he pushed open the storage room door, the air turned colder unnaturally. So on in the center of the room sat the map Emily had found earlier, glowing faintly with a pale bleach-white light. Emily stood in front of it, back turned toward him, stiff, unmoving. He rushed to her, grabbing her shoulders, but when she turned around, her eyes were fully black, deep enough to swallow light. She opened her mouth as if trying to scream, but only a burst of distorted static came out, like a radio signal trapped in her lungs. Ethan staggered back in terror, and Emily collapsed onto her knees, shaking violently, clawing at her own temples as if something was inside her head, trying to rewrite her. He held her trembling body against his chest, whispering that she had to fight it, begging her not to let whatever was controlling the soldiers take her to. And then the map behind them changed. Not slid, not flickered, changed, violently, as if reality was being overridden. A new section revealed itself, drawn in frantic, jittering lines. Extraction Chamber 01, active subject in pursuit. The ink dripped like it was wet. Suddenly, the ground beneath them trembled so hard the shelves toppled over in the main store, and the storage room door slammed shut on its own, locking them in darkness except for the glowing map. Emily convulsed with one last violent jerk and let out a gasp, not a scream, but a human breath finally breaking through the static. Her eyes slowly shifted back to normal, but she stared at Ethan with horror and whispered, "It wasn't trying to take me, it was trying to show me." She grabbed a Sharpie from the debris, circled an area on the map, tunnel exit. Cian said, This is the only way out, and that thing, it's coming to make sure we never reach it. As if responding to her words, the wall behind them bulged outward like something huge was pushing through the solid concrete. Cracks spiderwebbed across it, dust raining from the ceiling. Ethan pulled Emily toward the back window, smashing it open with a metal pipe, and they climbed out into the cold desert night. But Red Hollow wasn't silent anymore. The soldiers, or what wore them, were emerging from every building, limping, floating, glitching forward like corrupted projections. Their heads jerked in unnatural angles when they sensed Ethan and Emily, their hollow mouths opening in perfect synchronization, releasing a low, vibrating tone that felt like it was vibrating Ethan's bones apart. Emily grabbed his hand and whispered, "Don't listen, don't look, just run." They sprinted across the ghostly street, the world bending slightly around them as if the puppeteers were warping reality to pull them back. Streetlights sparked to life in a chain reaction, each one flickering blood red, as they passed beneath, illuminating the soldier puppets closing in from every direction. One of the creatures lunged from atop a building, its limbs bending backward like a spider's as it crashed onto the ground in front of them. Ethan barely pulled Emily aside in time. Its jaw split open to reveal a second mouth inside, dripping black fluid that sizzled on the pavement like acid. They ran toward the far end of town where the desert stretched endlessly, and just beyond the sand dunes, Ethan saw a metal hatch partially buried in the ground, exactly where Emily had circled on the map. Tunnel exit C, but the moment they reached it, the sky above them rippled like a dark curtain being lifted, revealing for just a second the towering silhouette, something massive, skeletal, multi-limbed, hovering high above the clouds. Not a creature, a puppeteer, the source. Emily screamed and fell to the ground, clutching her chest as a telepathic shockwave slammed into them. Ethan dragged her toward the hatch, prying it open with raw desperation. As soon as the latch cracked, a rush of cold air burst out, carrying the faint echo of voices, human voices calling for help from deep underground. Ethan hesitated, but the soldier puppets were closing in, their bodies jerking violently as the thing in the sky tightened its invisible strings. With one last heave, he pulled the hatch open and shoved Emily inside before dropping in after her, sealing the door above them with a metallic clang that echoed through the tunnel. The air below was stale, heavy with the scent of rust and old machines. The tunnel stretched endlessly into the darkness, lit only by faint emergency strips along the floor. Ethan helped Emily to her feet, and they started moving, footsteps echoing in the tight space. But the deeper they went, the clearer the whispered voices became. Not ghosts, survivors, scientists, soldiers, civilians, all trapped, all begging to be released. Emily peered through a window in the tunnel wall, and her breath hitched. Inside, a long, cylindrical chamber were dozens of human bodies floating midair, suspended like puppets on invisible wires, their limbs limp, their eyes wide open in horror. And above them, a swirling mass of shadow and tendril-like threads pulsed rhythmically, controlling each body like a marionette. Ethan grabbed her shoulder and whispered, "We can't stop. If we look too long, it sees us." Emily nodded, tears streaming down her face. They pushed onward until they reached the end of the tunnel where a blast door blocked their path. A panel beside it flickered with a faint message, "Manual override required. 2 operators." Ethan placed his hand on one panel, Emily on the other. The moment their palms touched the sensors, alarms blared overhead, red lights flashing violently. On the wall beside them, a monitor powered on, revealing a live feed from the hatch they'd just closed. The soldier puppets were swarming around it, and then the feed glitched. A pair of elongated fingers pried the hatch open from the outside. The creature from the diner emerged into view, crawling down the ladder with impossible speed, and Ethan felt his heart seize. "It's coming," Emily whispered. The blast door groaned as it opened inch by inch. Ethan grabbed Emily, pulling her through the gap before it fully opened. Just as the creature's hand shot through the tunnel wall's opening, claws missing Ethan's face by inches, they spun into a massive chamber on the other side, the final room of the compound. In the center, a large platform hummed softly, surrounded by machinery that looked far more advanced than anything from the original facility. A screen flickered on above it with a single message: "Evacuation teleporter, one use only." Ethan and Emily stared at each other. One of them could escape, one couldn't. Ethan tried to shove Emily toward the platform, but she resisted violently, tears pouring down her face. "No, we both get out, or neither." But the creature was almost through the blast door now, the metal buckling under its strength. The puppeteer above the clouds was lowering itself, shaking the entire facility. Ethan cupped Emily's face, pressed his forehead to hers, and whispered, "I'm getting you out. You're going to live." Before she could protest, he lifted her onto the platform and slammed the activation switch. Light erupted around her, engulfing her body in a blinding white glow. She screamed his name, reaching for him, but he stepped back, forcing himself not to grab her. The creature burst into the chamber just as the teleportation completed. The light vanished. Emily was gone. Ethan turned to face the creature, broken soldier's shell hanging loosely around something far worse just as the puppet tendrils reached for him. He didn't scream. He only whispered, "I hope she made it." The creature lunged. Darkness swallowed the room, and then everything snapped into silence. Emily awoke, lying in the middle of a highway at sunrise, alone, trembling, tears streaking her face. The desert was quiet, normal, peaceful, but when she looked down at her shirt, she saw a single black thread thin, almost invisible, resting on her collar. She grabbed it with trembling fingers, and before she could throw it away, it twitched, and somewhere far across the desert, the sky rippled, as if something massive was beginning to descend.